China Watch Radio is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitol Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum!
Tonjiman, Hoying. Ladies and gentlemen, that's comrades, friends, welcome to this edition of August 25th of China Watch Radio.
Comrades?
Yes, comrades.
Oh, boy.
We're all joining the CCP, aren't we, Billy?
Not me.
No, me neither. Ladies and gentlemen, today we've got David Welch in the studio.
Him.
That's me, yes. And we've got the great Billy Graff.
That's me.
And Johnny Colliers.
And
what's left of them, here I am.
Good. And Susan Simon helping us on the boards. Thank you, Susan.
No way.
So a great crew with you today. Michael Olson is on another commitment, and he'll return to us next week. Today's episode of the show, we're going to be discussing a number of current events that are present affecting the world, affecting China. And our question for the day is the world dividing into two factions? Are we seeing the China and the West, the East and the West, dividing along a different axis of relationship, similar like we had in the Cold War, or maybe some other times in our history?
If Michael Olson were here, he would point out the fact that we probably have been in sort of a war with China economically for quite some time.
That's right.
So,
well, and I think we've got some really interesting stories today that'll help buttress that point of view. I'll cover how Hunter Biden helped the CCP Premier Influence Group gain U.S. foothold. Emails reveal how Hunter got Obama to officially recognize key partnerships that he was developing. Billy, what do you got for us?
well, there's the thought that one of our governors, the governor from Indiana, has gone to Taiwan this month. The third, count them three,
Wow.
delegations from the United States in like 2 months. Is there really any idea that who we're backing between the CCP and Taiwan?
I don't think you need tea leaves to probably figure that one out.
And then there's the idea that that Jonty's following a couple of stories for us today as well.
Hey, Jonty.
Hey, so given the situation vis-a-vis Taiwan that Billy just mentioned, I found a very interesting article that sort of elaborated on the strategic position that Taiwan's in, and it's sort of a discussion of the new situation evolving there very quickly. They're referring to it as the fourth Taiwan Strait crisis, and it sort of focuses on the concept of Taiwan under siege, being blockaded for an extended period of time, and what that would mean strategically, and how we really should be preparing for such an eventuality.
Fantastic. If we maybe just lead into our stories for the crew here, I'll lead off with the Hunter Biden laptop has yielded a
famous laptop.
The famous laptop has generated just a cavalcade of really interesting insights into what happened during Joe Biden when he was vice president for President Obama, and what Hunter was doing in the background at the time, securing relationships. Well, according to freebeacon.com, there was actually a really interesting set of content that's emerged and floated to the surface. And it really ties together a number of themes that we've been discussing on the show over the last several months. Key to that has been the elite capture that Michael Olson has been really keen to remind us and talk about. The Biden administration last month, this is where it gets really choice. President Biden, the Biden administration last month warned of a Chinese Communist Party front group that seeks to co-opt state leaders as part of Beijing's sprawling foreign influence operation. And this all came from emails that were tied in with emails off of Hunter's notebook. So here you have the whole project coming full circle, and I'm not going to go into the whole article in detail, But essentially what happened here is Hunter and Joe and Jim Biden, his brother, along with other associates, had cultivated these relationships in China. In fact, they had put together these forums, and they sound really innocent, like this Chinese People's Association of Friendship with Foreign Countries, right? There's these association names that sound wonderful. It's like, well, we should participate in that. We'll have, meeting of the minds and conversation. We can have some transparency. We can, hopefully, get onto a higher plane as two peoples, dominant peoples on the planet. But really what this turns out to be is a cauldron where they do influence peddling and then be able to put the arm on executives and officials of the U.S. government.
Sort of like the holistic grenade exchange.
I'm not sure quite what that is, but I don't want to ask.
Well, no, but I mean, that's about how nonsensical the title is.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's all exchange grenades and be happy.
Yeah. And it's almost kind of in some ways what happened here, except one of them was live and the other one wasn't.
Yeah.
And you can guess which one, who got the live one. So Biden's emails, which have been previously reported, show that the younger Biden helped the Chinese Communist Party influence outfit that's father's administration now views as a national security threat. So this is the funny thing, is that they built these forums to help drive investment, which enriched a lot of people, including the Biden family. Now it's got a life of its own, and now it actually becomes a national security threat.
Well, it makes you wonder, at least, from one administration to the other, I've often wondered this, and I never really thought about this till I heard Jonty try to, take the other point of view on a lot of different subjects. So he kind of has forced me into thinking a different way.
Yeah.
I think when different administrations come in and they get a different set of advisors, the president gets a different point of view about things.
That's correct, yes.
And if you're the vice president under Obama, there's one set of guys telling you what they think is the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
And then, you become president, you get a different vice president and a whole different set of advisors. Now you got a different point of view going to the president. So it doesn't really surprise me that Hunter Biden went and established all this stuff while his father was vice president.
Correct.
And now that his father's sitting in the big chair, the perspective's a little different. I can understand that. What I don't understand about Hunter Biden is how he ever got that laptop out of his possession.
I don't either.
That was just the stupidest thing anybody could have ever done.
One of the popular theories that's floating around, it was actually a passive cry for help. Because
a big passive cry.
Yeah, because his sister left that really damning personal journal. She had a diary that she left under her bed at a treatment center. Same thing, and left behind. I thought, well, that's really curious that both siblings would leave evidence.
Well, look, the family's had a lot of issues. When your older brother dies.
Yeah.
And it upsets the whole apple cart in the familial unit, then, I can understand where there would be some issues on down the line with, siblings. I get that,
Yeah.
And so, but just how all that information off that laptop got out to the public, it just blows my mind that it even happened.
It is. What's interesting is that how this stuff is actually generate a life of its own, and it's almost out of control.
It's affecting government worldwide now.
It is. In fact, the Chinese People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries and State Legislative Leaders Foundation, that's got to be, I'd love to see what the actual Chinese word for that was. It's kind of a mouthful.
One syllable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, get them. So they had 5 cooperative forums. One was in Honolulu, Las Vegas, Wuhan, wherever you heard of Wuhan before, Shenzhen since 2015, providing the Chinese influence group access to dozens of state legislative leaders and American business executives. While the U.S. government has not publicly scrutinized these forums, which is kind of interesting, people have let this stuff slide because I think they thought there was probably benefit to this, right, and not being probably something nefarious. The State Department, however, in 2020 pulled out of these forums between the Chinese group and National Governors Association due to the spread, this is a quote now from State Department, the spread of Beijing's malign influence in the United States. Maybe they finally read Barry Schweitzer's book.
Well, we have been talking about this for quite some time on this program.
We have, Billy, and you have been a real beacon of knowledge on that.
Jonty, you got a thought on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've got like three different thoughts that are trying to come together into something cogent that I can say. I mean, I wonder about that timing, 2020, and which administration we're looking at there.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, one of the sort of hidden story here is, and I should really just ask you guys, are we seeing a sort of damage control on the part of the Biden administration,
Yeah,
or are we seeing evidence of just how much the culture in Washington has changed vis-a-vis?
I think you got both.
I do too, yeah.
I think you've got a huge culture change in Washington right now.
That's
Everybody's trying to cover their rear ends, but also I just think there's a whole bunch of damage control going. It's not our fault,
Right. I have to concur with that, Billy. I think, and Jonty, I think you guys are both right on the mark.
Yeah.
I think it's both.
Amazing. It is. It's truly amazing.
So, Billy, what do you have for us
Okay,
today?
so I have this strange thing going on here. We've had Nancy Pelosi showed up, then another delegation showed up, and now it's the governor of Indiana. I bet you can't even name who this guy is. Right? Do you know who the governor of Indiana is? I didn't know before I read this article. His name is Eric Holcomb. He and a bunch of other state officials from Indiana arrived in Taiwan this past Sunday. Now, this is the third delegation to visit the island this month.
And this is following Nancy Pelosi's.
How many delegations from the United States have gone to Taiwan, I mean, like, government officials in the last 10 years?
Yeah. Very quietly, a few, very, very quietly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this delegation, the third one from, I mean, I don't know if you consider the Indiana governor a high government official, but he's one of the 50 leaders of 50 states in the United States, so I guess he's considered pretty high.
He's probably the message man for something.
And, soaring tensions between the United States and China. We've been talking about this for weeks on this program. So this is not helping to calm down the tension, I guess is the best way to put it. Anyway, he's a Republican, Mr. Holcomb. He said the trip was meant to boost economic cooperation between the United States and Taiwan. He wanted to focus on the semiconductor industry, and my God, don't we all?
Absolutely.
There are Fords, there are Chryslers, there are all kinds of cars sitting on a dock somewhere waiting for a computer chip so they can sell these things for 3 times what they're worth.
Yep.
Taiwan is the world's leading producer of semiconductors. We all know this. We've been listening to this program for a while. They've had frequent high-level U.S. visits to the island because of commerce, but not because of government. Yeah. But it looks like that may change. The current Taiwanese president said the United States and Taiwan should work together on semiconductors, and they called them democracy chips.
What?
That's what she's calling them.
No, I find that really interesting. To me, the most interesting part of that article is the Taiwanese president traveling around Southeast Asia and other places, or just reaching out diplomatically to all these places and saying, "Hey, do you guys want some democracy chips?"
Yeah.
That to me, I found absolutely fascinating.
I did
What
too.
a strategy!
Yeah, it's actually ingenious. Look, we just want to help you stabilize your computer industry. Here are these nice chips.
Yeah.
And what they're really trying to do is peddle goodwill. I think that's the best way I can describe that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring this up because, China, mainland China, views contact between U.S. officials and Chinese officials as having Washington moving farther away from the China open policy. I think there's rightly pointing out the United States appears to be changing direction. Even though I don't know if we're really changing that much direction. I think we were trying to play both sides at the same time.
The analogy kind of reminds me of the first nuclear submarine was the Nautilus, where they went to the North Pole, and they had the conning tower pushed through the ice. It's like that policy is underneath the ice, and we're starting to see the conning tower come through now, right?
Yeah. It's a good analogy, actually. Yeah.
What it also, I think, is intentionally provocative. I think the U.S. is playing some games with mainland China, intentionally being aggressive. I mean, whatever argument, whatever emotional feelings you have about Taiwan, and I would love to see Taiwan respected in the world community at all. It is going to upset the CCP to hold a series of meetings with them.
Well, somebody's going to be upset no matter what.
Exactly.
But yeah, I see your point, particularly in world forums, in places where mainland China would lose a whole bunch of face when we help Taiwan or acknowledge Taiwan's existence or
the only thing
try to deal with them at all.
The only thing we have to be careful of, my opinion, is that we don't create some type of a triggering event where there's a justifiable cause for China to react militarily to Taiwan, right? I mean, there's a little bit of a narrow path I think we're walking, right? We want to show the reinforcement. Right. We want to grow the relationship with Taiwan, but not have a triggering event that would justify some type of military action ahead of the Congress meeting in China.
Oh, you mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of wonder about that, though. I wonder if actually the cost-benefit analysis being done by the U.S. security apparatus, blob, isn't actually looking at the positive sides of intentionally provoking a military conflict around Taiwan, particularly a limited one, where even if the U.S. and Taiwan don't really come out ahead, it creates
it's a forcing function. Right?
So that the tip of the iceberg would be the military conflict. The real effect would be economic on a global scale.
Absolutely.
It would. Yes, it would. It would, and if you kind of trigger it the right way, then you have some control because you know how they'd have to respond.
Well, the problem that we have to continually think about and remember in this whole discussion is the fact that China's economy at the moment sucks. Mm-hmm. It's just not very healthy.
No, it's not. It's good. It's in terrible shape. They're helicoptering money, stimulus in their country as well. And we've reported here over the weeks too people laying down on their mortgages, right?
They're stuck. Look, for people in China to openly defy the government by not paying the mortgage they're obligated to pay. Yeah. Just saying, we're not paying it because we're not getting anything out of it, and sorry, we're just not going to do it. That's a huge act of defiance.
It's a big statement, and maybe I'm always scared of venturing into stereotypes, but there's always a little bit of a stereotype of Chinese paying their bills. So to lay down, and not pay their mortgages.
Well, wait a minute though. Let's put it in perspective. Yeah. If for instance, I get mad at my bank and I decide I'm not paying the mortgage this month.
Yeah.
Okay. What happens? Okay, you get a ding on your credit. They send you a bunch of nasty notes. Pay your mortgage. Come on, bring it up to speed.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. In China, you don't pay your mortgage, the Red Guard shows up.
Yeah.
And takes you to jail.
Yeah.
If they can find you.
The effect so our credit score means it's harder to get a loan. Their credit score means you're no longer allowed to get on a bus.
That's right.
So there's a dramatic difference in the meaning of credit score.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. For people in China to openly defy, it's a big deal.
No, it's a bold step, and it's counterculture, and it's also crosses a line with the government as well. So, Jonty, what do you have for us here before?
With regards to this situation in Taiwan, I read a very interesting article in Real Clear Defense. I find Real Clear Politics, their whole Real Clear Energy, their whole little ecosystem to produce some out of the mainstream cogent material. Yeah. If it's coming from Real Clear Defense, it's probably coming from somebody who has some relationship with the defense industry in some sort of meaningful way, and so you get some sort of insight. And this article, Breaking the Blockade, by the way, to our audience, all of the articles that we discussed here, you can find them all on ChinaWatchRadio.com, and we invite you to follow along, sign up for our newsletter. So this article is actually referring to what's happening now as the fourth Taiwan Strait crisis. I'm not going to go through the history of all the previous three because I don't remember it off the top of my head, and also because I think anyone can sort of recognize that there's been a whole bunch of things that have happened between China and Taiwan over the years, dating back to the 50s. So This article seeks to sort of look at the current situation, being that China is now conducting fairly regular military drills, in quotes, but these drills end up being a sort of de facto blockade while they're running.
That's an interesting perspective, actually. I never really thought of it that way, but that's worth just stopping for a second, because you're right. When people are doing live fire exercises in a strait, it's kind of like a no-cross zone, right?
Well, you don't want to fly a commercial pilot, doesn't want to fly over that. You certainly don't want to take any military ships through there.
Yeah.
The zones that they're conducting these exercises in are precisely Taiwan shipping lanes.
Yes.
It's not an accident at all.
No.
So essentially, China is getting iterative practice in blockading Taiwan, something that it would want to do in the event of open hostilities with Taiwan. And what the article kind of looks at is that being the case, how should the U.S. be responding to this? And one of the Taiwan is a place that relies on imports for energy and for food.
Well, for everything, it's an island.
It's an island. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big island, but they need something like $3 billion worth of U.S. energy imports, essentially, in order to keep their military going and their economy afloat. So one of the things that this article suggests that's kind of obvious is that the U.S. should be working with Taiwan to try to help them stockpile both fuel supplies and food supplies in the event of a protracted open conflict with mainland China. I mean, duh. So they're sort of advocating for the Biden administration to look into that. The other thing that I found interesting is they talked about how, in terms of U.S. military exercises, the U.S. should specifically be practicing anti-blockade naval activities. They mentioned, which I found kind of cogent. They mentioned that prior to the U.S. entering into the Second World War, the U.S. had spent something like 6 months practicing protecting fleets transiting the Atlantic to the U.K.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, a very interesting article. There's a lot more to it, a lot more in it than just that. But
so basically, what you're saying is the United States should practice surfacing the submarines.
There you go.
In the general vicinity.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break. When we return, we're going to actually look at a couple of other interesting stories here on China is actually the U.S. government giving sensitive technology to China.
You know, that's very interesting because the comment, that story fascinates me. I know you're going to get into this in a minute, but the story fascinates me for a couple of reasons. Everybody thinks China steals what they want in our technology range, right? Wrong.
Here's an example of wheeling it in a barrel right to them.
Yeah, we gave it to them.
We gave it to them.
Not only, they didn't even ask for it.
And this is very sensitive information that our economy is going to hinge on going forward.
Great. We'll be right back on China Watch Radio. Satisfy your hunger with a fresh, prepared, twice-daily grab-and-go sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
It's time to share your hobbies and passions, and the Santa Cruz County Fair has made it easy. Deadlines vary, but for many departments, it's the 4th weekend in August. Dates and deadlines in the entry guide available online at santacruzcountyfair.com and libraries and feed stores throughout the county. It's easy to enter. Just go to santacruzcountyfair.com.
There's no better way to have more fun in one day than Santa Cruz County Fair.
We're headed for the warmest weather of the year. I'm Charles Friedman. Before you turn on that air conditioner up to max, give a thought to the safety of all the electrical circuits that keep you cool. Best way to check on the safety of your electrical circuits is with the help of Chris Jensen and the staff at JM Electric. Chris, what should we be watching out for?
Thanks, Charles. It is really important to be mindful of the electrical circuits that power air conditioners. Any electrical leak from these circuits is a real fire danger. You may not be able to see the electricity leaking from the circuits behind your walls, but JM Electric's state-of-the-art testing equipment can find them. And JM Electric is happy to help folks out with a free home assessment to see if the current safe testing service is right for your home. Give us a call at 422-7819.
Go straight to jmelectric.com and take the home electric safety test. After you answer 12 yes or no questions, you'll have a good idea about how safe to feel. If you don't feel safe, call JM Electric and ask for a free current safe home assessment. That's JM Electric at 422-7819. You'll sleep well at night.
KO here with your KO sports questions of the day. USA Today reports that our attention span only lasts an average of 8 seconds. Maybe that's why baseball fans can't get their friends and family to sit through 9 innings. Let me know what you think. Tune in to Good Morning Monterey Bay. I'm on with Rosie and Bill at 7:12. And I'm on with Dave Michaels and the Flight 1080 crew at 5:35. Don't forget to log on to KSCO.com, click the KO banner, and vote.
Hey guys, it's Rob Carson on KSCO. Yeah, a special gift from me to you. If you want to check out, we've made it a lot bigger. It's called the Rob Carson Show. We have a lot of stuff to get on the show, not only the great guests that we have, but also the great satire that you hear on the show. And we have seen some good news and some bad news as far as the country is concerned, as well as my commentary. So if you want to check that out, just go to KSCO.
Don't miss the Rob Carson Show, 9 to noon, right here on KSCO.
Asked what kind of family she wanted. She said, a family like yours.
Learn more about adopting a teen at adoptuskids.org. You can't imagine the reward. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for the second half hour of China Watch Radio. And as our previous half hour, we were just talking about key issues of the day. If you'd like to be on the inside team, you want to be part of the China Watch team yourself, go to ChinaWatchRadio.com. From ChinaWatchRadio.com, you can actually sign up for a newsletter, and you'll get a really concise, well-scripted, tight weekly email of the content that a lot of it we're sharing here on the show. John T., would you like to share a couple of words about that, since it's a lot of
you do all the work?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, I'd say that, we have a great 2-hour discussion here once a week. We cover about 1/3 of what we publish.
Yeah, that's if
through
we're
the
lucky.
newsletter. Yeah. There's just so much going on. And in fact, as we move today toward talking about the Chinese economy, I think we're going to partly cover like maybe one article in that realm. It's such a poignant piece of thing to be looking at in terms of understanding what's happening in the world. I think we've got about 5 or maybe 6 curated articles and videos that are each of them absolutely worth checking out.
Hey, you know what's really cool about our stuff we put on the website, though, is the fact that we get, we don't just pull from the sources you would think of it, right off the top of your head, CNN, MSNBC, things like that. We pull articles from people who've been thinking about various topics for a long time and publish them in different places.
Yes.
You might get an article from the Epoch Times. You might get an article from the BBC. You might get an article from some blogger you've never heard of.
Well, I've got one coming up from NPR.
There you go.
We troll deep to find the content.
That was a rare one. I kind of looked at that and I thought, NPR? I'm actually going to be posting something from NPR.
Just before we press forward with our articles here, Johnny, a quick question for you. If somebody registers, they sign up with their email on ChinaWatchRadio.com and they get that weekly email, do they get any advertising? Is there any other spam? Is that list sold to anybody?
The only thing that we do with those email addresses is send out a weekly list of articles and a weekly summary of the show. And absolutely no, we would never.
We don't sell anything.
Sell the list.
They basically get a copy of our show prep.
Exactly.
And a whole bunch more.
Exactly.
Because like what John T. said is we there's a lot of stuff posted, but sometimes we only get to like 1/3 of it.
Yeah, if we're lucky, like you said.
Well, it is China. It's a big country.
It's a big country. It's a big economy, and there's a lot going on. Well, let's press into the interesting story we were teasing at the end of the first half hour, which is the U.S. has made a breakthrough in battery discovery, which then we turn and gave the technology to China. And this was actually really fascinating. We reported a few weeks ago that we pulled oil out of the strategic oil reserve and sold it to China. Right, so it's interesting that there's this highway of materials, minerals, resources, and now intellectual property, as we've seen at different levels. So Chinese company didn't steal this technology, we gave it to them, as Billy said. It was absolutely shocking that the U.S. Department of Energy in 2017, as part of a sublicense, and later in 2021, as part of a license transfer, gave this information to China. This was leading edge battery technology for not only automobiles, but for storing lots of power on the grid. Like that station we're building over in Moss Landing, where it's all a huge battery base, right, for supporting.
It's a giant Tesla wall.
It's a giant Tesla, exactly. Well put. That's a good description of it. What's fascinating about this of course comes from NPR, is that they were able to pick up this technology as part of a license transfer on the American taxpayer funded the entire green energy movement, right, which is supposed to help us with our economy going forward, according to Joe Biden and Obama and other prior presidents. But to take this kind of jewel of capability and then give it to a competitor was astonishing.
Well, here's my thought on this, okay? And I just want to interrupt you for a minute. Yeah. It might not all be as nefarious as you might think. With the whole look at worldwide climate change mitigation, maybe the thought was, we'll give this technology, we'll license the technology to China so that they'll try to clean up their act and get on the same there's vibe we are. There's an interesting idea. It's almost like there's the competing agendas then. Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, no, it's a good perspective.
But that's the only way I can look at it and justify it is, okay, we'll help you clean up your act.
Yeah.
Instead of lots of coal-fired power plants putting all kinds of soot in the air, maybe if you use this, we'll give you this technology, we'll let you use it. Clean up your act, guys.
Well, hopefully it was high-minded.
I'm just saying this is the only way I can look at it and put a positive spin on the thing.
Yeah, I think it's probably money under the table and elite capture, and off it went.
John T., am I way off on this?
I don't know. It's the sort of thing where what this article says to me is there's a missing investigation.
Yeah.
That needs to be done of why exactly did this happen. Something doesn't smell right, but it's very difficult to come with one little article on a subject and try and determine that degree of culpability. Although, just on the surface, I mean, look, climate change is one whole debate that I won't get into.
Yeah,
but. A license is something that is pretty malleable if, as the article asserts, U.S. taxpayers paid to develop this technology. The terms under which any Chinese firm was allowed to produce this technology would be something that you can draft up. So, what exactly were those terms? Was the Department of Energy getting handsome kickbacks for allowing this Chinese company to develop this technology? Couldn't the Department of Energy license it to more than one firm? That's where it really falls down for me.
I agree with you, John T. Those are good, open questions, I think, that need to be answered. I was just glad that this got elevated to the surface, so hopefully it puts pressure to investigators.
Well, now it's got the light of day.
Sunlight's the best disinfectant, right? Just kind of closing here, just so folks understand this technology and how different it is. We've heard of lithium-ion batteries that are used in the Teslas and a lot of our current appliances today. This is a vanadium redox flow battery. It's based on a design created by 24 U.S. scientists at a government lab. It took them 10 years to create this technology. The battery's about the size of a refrigerator and has enough energy to power a house that could be used for decades. That's the other thing, is that the lifespan of this battery is significantly longer than the active lifespan of a lithium battery that we see today.
Right, that's the key right there. It's the cost to deploy the technology. It's not the initial purchase price of an electric car. It's the cost to own the bleeping thing over the course of 20 years.
That's right.
Yeah. And it makes a difference how long the battery lasts, how long you can keep it in service, and how much it would cost to refurbish it or replace it. There's a whole lot of factors that go into that discussion.
Well, and the sad punchline of this is the engineers, a company called Uni Energy, had seen it in China actually now functioning, and it's designed and it's operating as expected. So they're actually building the thing, and we haven't even gotten that far with it yet. But we gave them the technology.
Well, we gave them the building
Blueprints.
scheme.
Yeah.
The blueprint.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, on that note, German, in the European Union, Germany is the engine now. They're the economic powerhouse.
That's right.
They built their economy in such a way that they're the guys everybody in the European Union is turning to. They're sort of like the United States of the European Union.
No, they're big. Like when Greece had their economic crisis, it was Germany that bailed them out.
That's right.
Yeah.
So German dependence on China is growing at a tremendous pace, according to research. This is a scary idea. The German economic engine that pretty much powers the European Union, keeps it afloat and keeps it moving along, is dependent now on China for a lot of stuff. The German economy became more dependent on China in the first half of 2022, with direct investment and a trade deficit reaching all new heights. This is despite political pressure on Berlin to pivot away from Beijing, according to research done by Reuters. Now, Reuters, isn't that prevalent here in the United States, but Reuters in Europe and around the world they're like the Associated Press of the rest of the planet. Now, at the same time that growth in German exports to China weakened significantly, the German Economic Institute said in a recent study that there's more local production in the Chinese market, which is an interesting statement to me.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure what that means exactly, but despite dangers and problems, economic interdependencies with China have been moving in the wrong direction at a tremendous pace in the first half of this year, according to the research done by Reuters. So basically, they're talking a good game, Germany. Well, we won't buy so much gas. We won't, we'll join the whole thing about, the Ukraine and all that.
Yeah.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
No, wrong. They're turning toward China in a big way.
Yeah. Johnny.
Well, something I do want to note in that article, it mentions that since 2000, the share of Chinese imports from Germany rose from 3% to 12%.
That's a big rise.
So China has been increasingly importing more from Germany over the past 2 decades. Of course, that doesn't really compare to the dramatic increase of Chinese exports coming into Germany. What I don't see so much in this article is an explanation of what industries are really dependent on this increase in Chinese imports. Is it stupid Amazon crap, or is it jet engine parts? Because
I think
it matters in my mind.
It does matter, but here's the thing that scares me about this: Germany's trade deficit with with China has leapt to about 41 billion euros.
Wow,
that's a lot of trade deficit.
It's huge, yeah. Especially a company size.
I don't know what the current value of the euro is, but I think if it's 41 billion euros, that's like $60 billion.
No. You're 6 months behind on that, Billy. The euro is now worth less than $1.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
okay.
Great time to go.
Good for thanks for that. Okay, I don't feel quite so bad. It's only 40 billion euros.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right.
Okay. So. What's a billion? A billion euros here, a billion euros there. Pretty soon, real money.
Leaks out of your back pocket quickly.
But anyway, I just thought this is fascinating that, we thought, Germany was, particularly after Brexit.
Yeah.
When England left the European Union. Now Germany's a bigger deal in the European Union, but now they seem to be trading hot and heavy with China, just like we did.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
I always have this vision of Germany that in the EU, that the EU is Germany, and there's all these other satellite countries kind of around them.
You know how I look at it? And I know this will probably be really unfair, but here's the way I sort of visualize the situation between Germany and the rest of the countries in the European Union. You ever seen a shark with a remora fish glued on the bottom of it?
Oh, yes.
Okay? The rest of the European Union is the remora fish on top of the giant,
so close you can't
white,
see him or bite him.
Yeah, great white shark, you know?
Yeah, safe place to be. Yeah, I just saw, because France, I just saw a statistic today that they went from the one of the fifth largest economy in the world down to like below 25.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just really astonishing. Too. Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear more about that. Certainly Germany has been it's been a bulwark of Europe. I mean, you said something when you started out the article about how Germany is now the center of gravity in Europe, and I thought, well, that started with Otto the First. I'd say,
we helped them. Remember, after World War, whichever one it was, I forget. That get them mixed up. I think it was World War I is when Russia was our ally.
Yes.
If I remember right. Okay, then we had World War II, and everybody bombed. Europe got bombed to smithereens, and we had this big war, and then we fought in the Pacific at the same time. When it was all said and done, guess who helped Germany come back on Japan and all those other countries we were at war with? And suddenly we're pouring cement and building steel mills, and Germany turned into this big economic powerhouse. So did Japan.
It's an interesting point, because Peter Drucker, the famous business writer, he was famous for the total quality management, discussion, bringing that back to the United States. That we helped rebuild their economies, like you're saying, Billy. We helped them build modern factories.
Right.
And so we had these antiquated factories from the 1900s, from the end of the Industrial Revolution, basically, and they actually had whole new facilities that were much more efficient and effective than ours, that really helped dominate then after World War II. A lot of that happened in China also, right? I mean, their zenith and their rise really occurred in the 90s and then to the early 2000s. So a lot of the plant materials that they have now are also modern.
Gee, where did all that money come from?
Exactly. Buying a lot of trinkets at Walmart.
Well, you could say all you want about some of the nefarious things that the Chinese government does, but like they wanted to build a bullet train.
Yeah.
We don't have a bullet train.
No.
There's no bullet train in the United States anywhere.
Yeah, they're going to run 10 miles in the Central Valley of California.
And they can't run at full throttle because the track can't handle it.
Exactly. Well, it helps
but we can help another country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, there doesn't seem that same kind of priority with a sense of urgency around building infrastructure.
Well, everybody's talking about, everybody's in this country right now is talking about the high cost of fuel, right? Yeah. In fact, there's a big deal article I read about diesel's on its way out, apparently in California, right?
Wow.
Well, don't you think a maglev high-speed train to Southern California from Northern California, if they could figure out a way to do it.
Oh, it'd be a boon.
It would be a huge boon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could get products and services and people back and forth in a couple of hours to Los Angeles, right? Instead, we're outlawing diesel and gasoline-powered cars. How are we going to get freight from here to there over the grapevine is beyond me. I don't know how they're going to pull that one off.
Yeah, no, you're right, though. I mean, when a country like China can make decisions
China
quickly.
Just makes the decision and builds the bullet train.
Yeah, no, just planning the bullet train path into the Bay Area through San Jose, it was a 12-year lawsuit over the path.
Well, that's what I mean.
They have a little easier time with eminent domain.
They do, yes.
Well, I'm not touting the Chinese system. I'm just saying.
No, you're not. No.
What I'm saying is that we're not competing on an even playing field with the way China operates.
There was a time, though, we were all younger, that freeways would get built quickly. Or aqueducts would get built quickly. Schools would get renovated quickly. I talked to a county employee in Santa Clara Valley who was in charge of roads and highways and airports. And he's saying it takes about 30 years to build a freeway in California. but just through all the litigation and studies and things that need to be done. So that's part of the reason why China can turn a circle around inside of us, right? Like you're saying, they can build a bullet train in a couple of years because they've got the mandate to do it.
Send the workers out there and say, okay, your farmland's gone.
Yeah.
We need it for this track. Yeah. We'll move you over here.
There's no special interests in China. Also, with regards to the push and pull between individualism and collectivism, China leans pretty heavily on the collectivist side.
Yes.
And we tend to lean the opposite direction more or less.
That's right.
Absolutely. I'm not saying that it's better or worse. I'm just saying that
we can do better.
It's not if you're trying to get infrastructure done, it's not a level playing field is what I'm trying to say.
No, and we've done better in the past. We just need to reconnect with that too. Hey, John T., what do you have for us? Close this out.
Yes. Well, in the second hour, everything that we've just talked about has set us up very well for a discussion of the question of, is the world splitting in two, particularly when we were talking about Germany, which I think we'll see is key to that. And I do hope our audience stays with us past the break. The situation, we want to keep our eyes on the economic situation in China. And I did just pull out some sort of data bullet points out of an informational article from the website marketsgroup.org saying that economists warn of U-turn in China's recovery. They cite a variety of different economists who are just pointing out some various facts. As we've covered in the past, they are having issues with the housing situation. I won't belabor that too much. Their central bank is lowering interest rates a little bit to try to loosen the monetary policy. Mm-hmm. Just this morning I read that they've put forward a bunch of stimulus. It ends up being under $200 billion in stimulus, something like $29 billion of special loans to the housing industry to try to sort of fix that situation.
Yeah, that may not happen.
Yeah.
It's like a drop in the bucket is what the analysis I'm reading is saying.
Yeah.
They've got weaker than expected increases in retail sales and industrial activity in July. That's coming out of the Shanghai lockdown. They're seeing less new economic activity than they would hope.
That doesn't seem like a surprise considering the scope of that lockdown and the economic part of the country that Shanghai was.
Yeah. Right. And investors are remaining wary of new COVID-19 outbreaks. I hope they're also wary of the political situation, or they're not very good investors.
John,
let's see.
I had a quick question for you on this. So one of the teasers you had here was that home buyers in more than 100 cities have reportedly refused to fork out mortgage payments for unfinished apartments.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
100 cities. I was just trying to grab that number. That was...
Well, it's not a very useful number, is it? It's 100 cities.
And what's the population in each of those cities?
Exactly what is the monetary value of the loans not being paid?
No, I know, but it's a wide geographic spread. That's what I find interesting, because a lot of the protests you've seen have been very localized to...
Can you imagine? Guys, I don't want to slow you down here, but I just want you guys to imagine this. Can you imagine home buyers in 100 cities in the United States saying, "Nah, we're not going to pay our mortgage"?
It's pretty broad.
That would be economic suicide in the United States.
But didn't something like that happened in 2008?
Look what happened.
Wasn't that something in the order of like 3 million homes or something like that?
It was a lot. I can't remember the exact number, but you're right. So think about what happened in 2008 when the mortgage crash happened, And a few of us, I hung onto the steering wheel and made all my. No, really, I did. I made all my payments, and I came out way better at the end of it. House is up and I'm above water again, and the house is still there and all that. But a lot of folks couldn't hang on.
No,
they couldn't make it.
No,
and the economy did not do well. Not at all.
Well, a lot of folks bought some really funky loans in order to buy a second home, in order to rent it out, and I think those were a lot of the folks that were giving up. Let's not get distracted by that. At any rate, in China, one of the things I find kind of interesting, and I don't really know the meaning, because this would there'd be a cultural aspect to this that would be difficult to understand, but they're talking about a youth unemployment rate at a historical high of 19.9%. I just looked.
Wait a minute.
I just looked at
19.20%.
Wow.
What's the age range on that?
Like I say, I don't know what that means. I looked up youth unemployment in the United States, and their Statista.com is describing the youth as 16 to 24, and they're putting our youth unemployment rate at 7.8%.
Wow, that's quite a difference.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to tell exactly what that means.
It means China's in trouble. That's what it means.
You're living with mom, and you're taking out the trash, and she's kind of ready for you to move out, but you can't find work.
So
what does it mean, really?
So they have boomerang millennials there too. I guess.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like people.
Like it.
And we had this discussion several months back on this program about the fact that the Chinese population is getting older, and if you've got youth who are not working at 20%, 20% of the youth isn't working, that means they can't take care of the older folks when they, Social Security system's going to collapse. It doesn't sound good.
No, that's a very astute observation, Billy.
It is, Billy.
That's a very good point, because we're looking at the situation where we keep having the facade of China, the Chinese economy, presented to us. And then there's this leak of all this data through a Chinese police station, and we find out, based on analysis of that data, that they're overestimating their population by something in the order of 200 million people.
We had callers, too, who've speculated that it's kind of convenient that the COVID-19 virus wipes out old people and those who are infirm.
But
right?
It also wipes out a significant, at least in the beginning, when they were really worried about it in China, it wiped out a lot of people. Didn't matter how old they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the CCP liquidated hundreds of thousands of Falun Gong folks. It's a country that has portable incinerators that they can just drive up somewhere and park it and then get rid of the bodies. So, I mean, if China was really trying to get rid of the elderly population by releasing a virus, I would have to think that they would just do it. They wouldn't be locking down certain areas and creating all. If that was the real end goal, then all these other things are unnecessary to achieving that goal.
But I just in thinking about the fact that if you've got somewhere close or around 20% of your youth population unemployed, not working. That does not bode well for your economy on several levels. The first of which is you can't maintain your social programs for the folks at the other end of the spectrum.
No, it inverts the income to expense pyramid.
Yeah,
right. Exactly. That would be a leading indicator of some serious bumps in the near future.
So listen. We're coming up for the second hour, and we'll be talking about all of this stuff. John T., go ahead and summarize the second hour. We're getting ready for the top of the hour break here.
Yeah, well, I came across an article that's really worth checking out on ChinaWatchRadio.com, which I don't have enough time to go into details on, but it's about the world splitting in two. And this is going to be a very interesting discussion, so I hope you all stick around.
Do we have a new Cold War at our hands?
So we have a telephone number for you. Get ready for the second hour. We'll take your calls after the top of the hour news. 479-1080, 479-1080. This is AM 1080 KSCO, Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey. You're listening to China Watch Radio. If you're keeping score, it's coming up on 3 o'clock.
Around the mid-50s, west-southwest winds around 5 miles per hour. And tomorrow, patchy fog between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy, then gradually becoming sunny in the afternoon. Calm wind becoming west-southwest 5 to 7 miles per hour. Boaters forecast for tonight, west winds 5 to 10 knots, wind waves 3 to 4 feet. Patchy drizzle expected, and tomorrow west winds 5 to 10 knots, wind waves 3 to 4 feet with patchy dense fog. Time now 6 minutes after 3 p.m., and that means it's time for the second hour of China Watch Radio.
China Watch Radio is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitol Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to back to the second hour of China Watch Radio. This is a wonderful portion, my favorite portion of the show, actually, where we actually talk to you, the audience. Our phone number is 831-479-1080. The topic on the table that we've been discussing, and we'll focus on for the second hour, is the world dividing into two factions. Are we seeing an alignment militarily, economically, politically, as a divide, the United States faction versus China? And who's in the middle? Is it Taiwan? Would love to know your opinion. 831-479-1080. Jonty, if we toss to you for a second, what is your view in terms of, is the world dividing into two factions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Billy, what do you think?
No, I agree with Jonty, and I would love to hear Jonty's point of view on this because, as I've said before on this program, his point of view is just enough different than mine that I find it fascinating.
I waited an hour to hear it, so Jonty, go.
Well, guys, I want to discuss with you an article, which, again, for our audience, you'll find this on ChinaWatchRadio.com. Not the full article, but an excerpt and a link to it. There's articles and then there's articles. CNN has an article up right now that says what Nicole Kidman's latest cover says about her bold fashion history.
Oh, good Lord.
Now, that's an example of an article. This article with the title Geopolitics, the World is Splitting in Two, is of an entirely different nature. There's reporting the news, and then there's folks who have the ability to provide real analysis and insight. The individual who wrote this, his name is Alistair MacLeod. I tried to look him up. I think that is the head of research for Gold Money. That sounds more appropriate. Wikipedia tells me that it's the 8th chief of Clan MacLeod who died in 1547. Going to take a guess it's not him. At any rate, the article starts out with a discussion of a gentleman who I was honestly unacquainted with, but apparently is somebody with a kindred spirit, so to speak. Sir Halford John Mackinder, who lived from 1861 until 1947. He's regarded by many as the founder of Geopolitics, in particular for a paper he wrote in 1904. Don't worry, I'm going somewhere with this. On the Geographical Pivot of History is the title of the article. He wrote it for the Royal Geographical Society. He's a Brit. He was helping the British sort of form their imperial strategies in the early 1900s. And in that paper, he formulated what's come to be known as the Heartland Theory. The Heartland Theory looks at a map of the world and postulates, based on where the people are, where the resources are, and where the land masses are, where the various places are that are going to be sort of innately prone to being centers of power. Mm-hmm. And the way that he describes the world in this paper is, honestly, I'll just quote him right here. It is not the pivot region of the world's politics that the vast area of Eurasia, which is inaccessible to ships, but in antiquity lay open to the horse-riding nomads, and today is about to be covered with a network of railways. He's talking about essentially Russia, China, to a lesser extent, the various stands, Iran. He's describing that sort of central chunk of landmass there, it being in 1904, they're seeing all this rapid increase in the use of rail. It being traversable through some sort of meaningful transportation, an incredible strategic region. And now he says, outside the pivot area, in a great inner crescent are Germany, Austria, Turkey, India, and China. And in an outer crescent, Britain, South Africa, Australia, the United States, Canada, and Japan. Now, those countries have changed a little bit since 1904. but some of those key countries are still there. Germany, India, and China are incredibly important to the strength and viability of a Central Eurasian power.
And we can still see that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, folks do some really silly things when they look at the situation going on with Russia. Everybody keeps saying, well, they have a GDP that's smaller than Portugal and things like that. That's true. They have a nominal GDP smaller than Portugal. I think it comes out at something like 1.5 trillion. But in terms of purchasing power parity, they have a GDP of about 4.5 trillion. It's considerable difference.
But also, too, John T., it's also very nascent, right? I mean, there's enormous potential that hasn't been tapped.
Exactly. And so really what this Mackinder character was doing during his lifetime, as he was going and advocating for, particularly after the First World War, he was going and saying, look, we have to make sure that Germany and Russia do not make friends. This is critical, because if Germany and Russia ally, then you're going to have this massive Eurasian power base. But now he also speaks quite a bit about China. Look, this is an article that I couldn't possibly summarize, but I want to just throw out maybe three more little tidbits before we go into an open conversation on this. I think they're all worth looking at. He goes in depth into fiat currencies, the banking systems of all of these various different places, and he talks about there's a difference in the banking system in China. Gosh, maybe I'm just going to read this. Since the death of Mao, in its rapid development, China has relied on the expansion of credit through state-owned banks. Bank executives are state functionaries instead of managers on behalf of profit-seeking shareholders like they are in the West. It is this difference which has insulated the domestic economy from the cycles of bank credit which have plagued the West's economic model with repetitive credit crises. So we have all of these periodic crashes. They don't have the same set of rules, essentially, because the folks running banks are kind of part of the state. So they don't have. So it says, while this lack of destructive cyclicality might be seen as a good thing, it also allows for malinvestments. Yeah. They don't have a self-correcting facility within the economy to stop. There's
no banking
bad
commission.
Investments being made. I mean, it's just so succinct. It's just right there. It's lovely stuff to read. I want to throw in another excerpt further down. This I saw as just so cogent a description of the past 50 years and how the West has blown it. When President Nixon turned the dollar into an entirely fiat currency in August 1971, he set off a train of events which is now ending. From establishing the dollar as the world's reserve currency and his agreement with Saudi Arabia, which led to the creation of the petrodollar, global fiat currency instability commenced as shown in Figure 3 of this article. I can't describe all that right now. But the fiat dollar gave both the U.S. government and the American banking system enormous power. That was effectively wielded, forcing reluctant nations to kowtow to the mighty dollar. The power was not used judiciously. This is something I have seen in my lifetime. Yep. Not everyone sees it this way, but I think there's some evidence there, leading to an alliance between Russia and China to protect themselves from U.S. actions. The lessons they learned from American imperialism were not lost. Despite eager promises to Russia not to do so, the U.S. military directly threatened her western border. For China, through her economic and industrial revolution being initially praised, she began to be seen as a threat to the American interests. So, I mean, that's something that we've been living through recently, is that China is now, after feeling like they were super buddy-buddy with the West, granted they were doing lots of nefarious things that had every reason to piss us off, they're now seeing this adversarial relationship. And again, that sort of pushed Russia and China into the same camp. This imperialism has made America few friends and many latent enemies. With repeated failures in U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East, North Africa, Ukraine, and most recently Afghanistan, the U.S. can now count on nations representing only about 19% of the world's population of 8 billion people, compared with the 54% allied to the world island. Now, this is the world island, that's one of John Mackinder's concepts. It's this idea that that Eurasia represents this one big world island, and everything on it is sort of in the periphery. And as we've seen over the last 6 months, there's been this rush, largely on the part of Vladimir Putin, to put together an alternative to the dollar, a trading bloc around BRICS, a variety of, I don't even remember all the trading agreements that they've been working on, alternative currencies to the dollar. It's been moving at an incredible rate to sort of consolidate the Eurasian landmass as an alternative and as a counterpoint.
Well, it seems
to U.S.-led economic and military order.
Both the Chinese and the Russians have tried to attack the dollar, basically.
Yeah. It seems like, Jonty, for what you've been describing, that we've been bickering a lot internally as a country over oftentimes maybe even petty things.
You think?
We've been eroded right through elite capture. So people who are the watch guards right at the towers are making compromising decisions. And while this is going on, there's this active formation of a realignment of the banking system. People are trying to realign, the international banking system, the geopolitical relationships. And then what you described, I thought was really interesting, was that access in Asia, where over that landmass, how do you interconnect those countries together so that they can have trade with each other through each other's back door instead of around through the waterways?
Right. Well, I think we overestimate the ability of Russia, Iran, China, India to easily trade over land. They're still relying on shipping if they want to ship oil for the most part.
Agree. It's just a vast of nothingness, and the weather is atrocious between summer and winter.
Also, the topography doesn't help either.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
The Khyber Pass is pretty difficult to get through on the best of days.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
So, John, just want to break in and just remind folks, if you'd like to comment, if you've got questions specifically for Bill Graff, myself, David Welch, sometimes known as Nordic Dave, or Johnny Collier, our number is 831-479-1080. And today's topic for the second hour here is the world dividing into two factions.
Is it happening? Is it really happening?
Is it really going on?
And like I said, we have lots of information. If you're unclear about quite what we're talking about, go to ChinaWatchRadio.com and check it out. We've got articles on just about everything we've talked about and a whole lot more. We do have a call. Let's talk to Mike, who's in Santa Cruz. See, I got to turn all these things on here the right way. Mike, you're on China Watch Radio.
Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call on the topic of are there two main powers, China and the West or America? And as you were talking about that, you were mentioning about the economics. And it seems in the modern age what we've done is we've, for, we'd say, convenience and mechanics, have this interlaced kind of global economy. But the question is if economics is the exchange between peoples, between individuals, and the real, honorable thing about it being just weights and measures. There's different people groups that exchange with each other without China being involved, or even right in the middle of it, governments and banks being involved. In smaller cultures, say like the Amish, for example, there's exchange between neighbors, and somehow that's created as an offense. But my question here is, in our conditioning and progression, have we, automatically been conditioned not to really think at the root level what exchange is in economics?
Interesting question.
Have we basically settled for the Borg, recognizing that, hey, China's huge, America's huge, there's nothing you can do about it, whether you want it or not. There's going to be one economic system, and anybody who doesn't fit into that will be basically starved out. I think it's time to revisit the foundations of what economics is. Like in our body, we have blood cells. That's a form of economy for the individuals sustaining on Earth. The store of life in the blood. And I look at economics, exchange of units and so forth as like blood cells in the collective sense. And what modality are we doing that through? Is it leading us to a point of, central control and oppression? Or are we actually revisiting some of the systems that actually were meant to have people have some freedoms and liberties
Mike, did we lose you?
Looks like we did lose Mike.
Mike, you brought up some absolutely brilliant question on the table. It's interesting because what we see here from the analysis that we've been doing is you've got the centralized governments have really encouraged the development of digital currency. We heard, just this week, the U.S. Central banks, the Fed, was interested in having a digital dollar. And of course, then you have complete transparency over all transactions. China is already implementing a digital yuan, right? So they can have complete transparency over civilian transactions within their economies. Countering that point of view on the other side is Bitcoin, right? It's the blockchain currencies that are completely decentralized that nobody can peer into.
Well, he made a very good point, and what I got from one of his main questions was, are we destined to trade on a global scale, or can we remodel that and have commerce among smaller different factions, I guess is the best way to put it. And I look at it like the think local first idea. When you want to buy something, look to your neighbor first before you go to
which
the
I'm
world.
hosting this Saturday from 2 to 3.
But I mean, it seems to me that's kind of what he was getting at, and it does make sense to me that we should. That we should look at times, at least, in a different way to interact economically.
Yeah, I loved his question, and John, I'm curious what you think of this too. I mean, Mike was talking about the relationships between people, maybe the vehicle, the currency that's used to barter, and then what goods are they actually trading, and is there kind of realignments on that, and where are the tensions? We're thinking in a classic case of country versus country, but there may be some other paradigms at work as well, like blockchain versus digital national currencies.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, this article, which covers many, many different things, goes into depth on currencies specifically. They compare. They sort of. The author sort of tries to illuminate the dollar system and the role of derivatives. Now, if we start talking about derivatives, everybody's eyes are going to roll in the back of their heads. But the gist of it is, it's some real funky financial vehicles by which to move money around and price commodities.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have a real thing, like gold is a real thing. But how do you come up with a value of that gold, a meaningful value of that gold? And part of the way that the West has done that is by creating these kind of funny money markets where they trade in things that don't actually necessarily even exist, and it's comical. So the global economy, it changes. I might be a little out of date on this, but the global GDP sits somewhere around $70 trillion. The over-the-counter derivatives are valued at $610 trillion. So this is a point at which you say, like, hold on a second, time out. It doesn't actually really make any sense. Could a person sell and spend $610 trillion? What would that mean? What would you purchase with that kind of money?
Yeah.
It really is financial instrumentation of the most arcane nature. Whereas China and Russia have been making strides to price commodities based on a basket of commodities.
Actual need.
Yeah, so actual utility.
Yeah.
So what's the utility of a pork barrel or a barrel of oil or a bushel of hay or whatever it is,
or a
all
loaf
those
of
things-
bread.
Yeah.
or a loaf of bread. All of those things have a coherent known utility. And this is part of where you get into all of the strange obfuscation around GDP that I mentioned earlier. India has the same size GDP as the UK. There's 60 million people in the UK. There's 1.4 billion people in India.
So it's a different scale.
Yeah. So that's exactly right. So you've put some kind of heavy weight on the scale, and then you make a whole bunch of proclamations and decisions and trade agreements based on trading a pound for a what's the name of the Indian currency?
The
I'm
rupee?
not remembering.
Yeah.
Rupee. That's right. So you say, I'm gonna sell a loaf of bread here in London. I'm gonna take the 4 pounds that I get from that, and I'm going to buy 20 loaves of bread in Delhi with it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
Because when you exchange those pounds for rupees, that's what happens.
Well, we can use the same to make it easier for the audience to understand. You can do the same thing about the dollar versus pesos in Mexico.
Yeah.
Right now, I think the peso's 14 or 15 to 1. So you can see the scale of how it changes value-wise when you cross the border. Yeah. I was thinking when you were talking about this, John T., about the idea that we're talking about global economies, right? And we're talking about rupees versus dollars or whatever. But think about societies where it's barter, where you go, you need something done with your child at the local clinic, for instance, and you don't have any money, but you go home and cook dinner for the doctor.
Well, that's really common here in Santa Cruz County. Is people barter services all the time?
Sure.
Yeah, goods for services.
Yeah.
Vice versa.
I mean, there's value in almost everything, depending on who needs whatever it is you've got.
Well, in fact, John T., where you're in the mountain community, that's just epic, right? I mean, I suppose more is bartered than cash is traded.
I think it's absolutely comical compared to other parts of the world. The unemployment rate in South Africa is 50%. Now, is 50% of the population just destitute? No, absolutely not. 50% of the population is part of a non-traditional economy.
There you go.
There you go.
And to me, that's wonderful. If you have that strength in a non-traditional economy, you have a very robust society that can weather all kinds of storms. And when Lehman Brothers crashes, 50% of your economy doesn't care.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that sort of thing. But we also have a situation where we have these differingly articulated visions of human life and what is a good life, and
that's all relative.
And we have to be careful saying that, because we have the digital currencies arriving in the West in a big hurry here, unbeknownst and uninvited in terms of the population.
No, it's true.
No, but what you talk about is being a good life. What's a good life? What's a valid good life? Look, I have friends who live in the South Pacific, and they spend their day catching fish and
wearing a loincloth.
And not quite, but close.
Being facetious.
And
yeah.
they spend their day catching fish and cracking open coconuts and farming bananas.
Yeah.
And they have a very good life.
They look 20 years younger, probably.
They do.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, if you look at it compared to somebody who's living the rat race in Los Angeles for $300,000 a year,
Silicon Valley.
It's a completely different vision, but I would venture to say the islanders might be happier.
Yeah.
One of the things that we tend to, in the West, we tend to associate with a good life and put a very high priority on is our ability to be autonomous, to make our own decisions, and to have some sort of sense of what's pejoratively sort of known as freedom. So, now we have this idea of freedom. We spend an awful lot of time talking about how great it is to defend it. We don't so much look at our ability to make decisions independent of nefarious influence. So we believe a whole bunch of lies and crap all the time. and then we make decisions that all of the propaganda has forced us into making, and then we turn around and say that we're free. So we have some downsides there, but it's a lot different than what they experience in mainland China, where your sense of freedom is non-existent and barely articulated. You're actually you're not trying to be free. You're trying to protect yourself from the violence of the state.
Well, Johnny, we're up on our break. We're going to just take a really quick break. We'd love to have you join the conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, 831-479-1080. And the question is the world dividing into two factions, and what does that look like?
And we have some calls on the line. We'll take Dick when we come back after this break. Satisfy your hunger right now with the delicious ramen and sushi you'll find waiting for you at Kaito. Easy in and out location in the Capitola Mall food court. Special orders welcome. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
This is Koji. I'm looking forward to seeing you at my restaurant, Kaito.
It's time to share your hobbies and passions, and the Santa Cruz County Fair has made it easy. Deadlines vary, but for many departments, it's the fourth weekend in August. Dates and deadlines in the entry guide available online at santacruzcountyfair.com, and libraries and feed stories throughout the county. It's easy to enter. Just go to santacruzcountyfair.com.
There's no better way to have more fun in one day than Santa Cruz County Fair.
Today, nearly 1 in 4 teens are struggling with their mental health. But together, we can aim to do something about it. Join AIM Youth Mental Health for the annual Walk and Rally on Sunday, September 11th at 1 p.m. at the beautiful Lovers Point Park in Pacific Grove. The festivities will begin with a walk to raise awareness and funds to support youth struggling with their mental health. We will have speakers, music, information, fun for the whole family, face painting, a bounce house, and most importantly, we will raise awareness and funds for youth struggling with their mental health. Go to aimymh.org. That's aimymh.org. Register now for the Walk and Rally on Sunday, September 11th at 1 p.m. at Lovers Point Park. See you there.
Primo Roofing is your full-service roofing company. They not only replace roofs, but maintain and preserve aging roofs with an entire division dedicated to postponing costly roof replacement. Their maintenance division specializes in pressure washing, coating and sealing, mold and mildew removal, gutter cleaning and replacement, preventative maintenance, and repairs. Maintenance is key to long roof life. Are you ready to protect your roof? Call Primo Roofing today, working to extend and preserve the life of your roof.
Mow, dig, haul, lift. The versatile Kubota BX Series subcompact tractor does it all. Switching attachments is simple, and a smooth hydrostatic transmission makes for easy operation. The Kubota BX Series, the #1 selling subcompact tractor in the U.S. for over 10 years. Talk to your local Kubota dealer today to schedule a demo. Go to KubotaUSA.com for full disclaimer.
C&N Tractors in Watsonville and Paso Robles makes it so easy to get a Kubota. Give us your tough jobs.
Your business needs more space fast. No problem. Space is very reasonable at Anbar Self-Storage in U-Haul, easy off Highway 1 on Airport Boulevard. Spring cleaning special, first month free. Grow at Anbar Self-Storage in U-Haul in Freedom. Clean it out, pack it up, and drive it right to your door at Anbar Self-Storage in U-Haul. Easy off Highway 1 on Airport Boulevard by the airport. 24-hour security, 24/7 access. Spring cleaning special, first month free. Store it at Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul in Freedom.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this edition of China Watch Radio. In our last half hour, we would love to hear from you. Question on the table is the world dividing into two factions? And what are those factions? 831-479-1080. With us here today is David Welch, John T. Collier, Billy Graff, and Susan. Hey, Susan. Thank you very much. With that, Billy?
Yeah, let's take a phone call. Dick's been hanging on for a little while. Let's get Dick on the China Watch Radio live line. Hello, Dick. How are you?
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are talking about this. It's a natural progression that you're going through. Johnny, I really agree with you on most of this. But I would suggest there's 3 factions in the world. You know, if you want to look at the tea leaves here, the one faction, of course, I don't know if you're that concerned who's going to win, but I think there's three factions. One, I mean, if you know who's going to win, I certainly don't. First of all, there's China, okay, which is, it's non-human, it's non-environmental, it's non-freedom. It's basically evil, okay, incarnate, just evil, okay. Then I think then I'm going to say there's a hybrid between the West and China, and that hybrid is based on basically the hypocrisy that's going on within corporations and the swamp in Washington and the EU, and this is the Soros World Bank guys, and what they're doing is they're looking the other way. They're ignoring China's environmental, non-human, non-freedom stuff to get to basically they need China. They're not going to work hard. They're just going to use China for all the slave labor over there and cheap
it's a symbiotic
labor.
Relationship.
Yeah, so China's just a big factory.
So who's the third? I'm dying to know.
Well, okay, I'm going to say that the George Soros of the world and the swamp in Washington and EU is looking the other way because there's one factor they both agree on, and that is basically China doesn't care about its people or the population, and they'll look the Soros will look the other way because they want to reduce world population. They'll look the other way on everything else, the environmental wreck that China is and all that. The third is simple. The third is the most simple, which most Americans know about, and that is basically based on freedom and capitalism, open markets. We keep the reserve currency strong. We keep a balanced budget. We don't work with these evil companies and evil corporations that are going to work with China and any other world power that's evil. So we're basically, it's a balanced approach with religious freedom and common sense.
So
Dick,
when I'm hearing
the family and population's good.
Yeah, what I'm hearing
population,
I'm sorry, Dick. Yeah, what I hear you say is that there's the struggles at multiple levels, right? It's not necessarily a collection of one country versus another collection of countries. That there's actually a kind of a multi-positional tug of war that's going on between multinational corporations, which are really devoid of borders, people with global economic and political points of view, yes,
and maybe ethics too.
Yeah, and then countries with power. In fighting for prestige and dominance. So it's an interesting cauldron that you've cooked up to think about.
I mean, people, which one would you pick, right? You would take the freedom one, the open market one based on, trying to keep our reserve currency, a strong military, stuff like that, and balance our budgets so we don't lose our reserve currency. And then try, USA, MAGA country, man. That's what I'm talking about.
I would join Billy Graff's country. It would probably be a fun place to live.
Yeah. All right.
Well, listen, thanks for the call, Dick. We appreciate your perspective.
Thank you, Dick.
Okay.
Take care. It's a very interesting observation Dick made.
It is.
Because I think we all have in our brain, our ideal of where we want to be. Mm-hmm. And how we want to do it and who we want to interact with and all of that. Mm-hmm. And I think, when we go to the global world scale, we find out that there's some cognitive dissonance in what we want and what we're able to have.
Yeah, I got a text message from a buddy of mine, Mad Mike, from over the hill. He was speculating that are we going to be China 2.0? The United States. If he was trying to consider in terms of the alignment, this kind of lurch that we have towards socialism in the U.S. and more centralized government. I mean, it's an interesting point of view that there's a lot of governments that envy that top-down model that China has and its ability to make decisions. And
I go back to when you pose that question, I always go back to my go-to point of view.
Yeah.
The piece of paper will save us.
Yeah.
And I have to go there because I really believe in the piece of paper. And when I say that, of course, I'm talking about the Constitution.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, it's as long as we all remember that the piece of paper exists and that we're not, just flying by the seat of our pants here. If we remember and go back to the actual idea that, we're governed by a document that was put together with an awful lot of thought.
You know what I love about what you just said, Billy? Because I agree with you. I think that we, as a country, because of the Constitution, it's a self-correcting.
Yeah, the boat. The rising tide raises all ships, and I think if we remember we come into the biggest problem in this country, and when we deal with countries like China and Russia and Nazi Germany and all that. When we remember how much work went into this document that governs our life every day, and when we self-correct, because every once in a while we self-correct.
No, we wobble around back and forth.
Of course we do.
Bit in an orbit, yeah.
But think about it for a minute. The rest of the world looks at us as at least I hope they still do, looks at the United States as the beacon, man.
Yeah.
We're the lighthouse.
No, I think that's true, and I think that is the probably the salvation for us in terms of our country is indeed, the way our culture and our government is established around this rule of law and this reverence for, the Constitution. I think we're one of the longest running governments in history. Now, you look at the Roman Empire,
except
stuff like that.
Except for maybe China, and that's not really a government. That's more of a dynasty. Emperor.
Yeah.
But
they just celebrated 100 years, so we're way past them in terms of the specifics of the government.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
absolutely. And the thing about the United States government is it was founded on at the time, a pretty unique principle.
Yeah.
Instead of divine power coming from a family, that was in control of everything.
Yeah.
We said, wait a minute, that's not how we want. No.
Divine power comes from the divine.
Yeah,
it's a right, birthright.
We're allowed to be free by divine providence.
Yeah.
And
look, I agree with everything you guys are saying, but I'm trying to remember one of my favorite logical fallacies. It's when you come up with a really great answer to the wrong question.
Yeah, that's exactly okay.
Yeah,
and I agree with you in the whole civics lesson, and I find it very meaningful that we have a de facto divine clause in our Constitution vis-a-vis what a human being is.
Sure,
that's great, and that may produce some self-correcting aspects. The question I think we're trying to answer is in terms of the near and not so near future and how things progress. Are we situated in such a way that those beliefs and those institutions, the deep regard for the meaning of a human's ability to make meaningful decisions for themselves. Is that going to persist? Is there a possibility of that persisting? Whether it be through the sort of Western economic structures and trade. We're certainly going to see a consolidation of trade and power around the East. And I couldn't give China credit for it. I think they're doing everything to screw it up through their own stupidity. Through their own
people
stupidity.
away.
Well, they're flying drones around saying, "Please, fight your urge to want to be free."
Well, you look at
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you look at countries like Singapore, even Malaysia, probably merging the Philippines, certainly Taiwan, right? They have really terrific, and Japan as well. They have terrific economic agreements among themselves. Where they become, a self-reinforcing power in the Pacific. And, they play with China, but I don't think they completely trust China.
Well,
right?
I don't think
that's why
we
they align
completely trust China.
No, we don't. But that's why those countries I mentioned, if you notice, they're all aligned with the United States, militarily and through trade agreement, right?
They're all standing behind the guy with the big stick.
Exactly. There you go.
Right. Well, recall the prognosis in 1904 by Sir Halford John Mackinder, who said that there's going to be the Central Asian hub, and then there's going to be the near connected region, Germany, China, India, and then there's going to be this outside fringe, which is where the United States finds ourselves, along with our closest allies, the Five Eyes and AUKUS. I think we already are seeing two very distinct worlds arising. Pakistan, the U.S., this is alleged. The U.S. allegedly staged a coup in Pakistan just recently and kicked out an extremely popular leader. His name's Imran Khan, and they're trying to ban him off of Facebook and YouTube, so he can't.
Where have you seen that before?
But he's probably coming back into power. India is playing a very delicate game. India is maintaining an alliance, a military alliance with more with NATO, but they're very strong economic ties, not so much with China, but with Russia. It's kind of. I once had this experience. I'm going to share a little bit of a weird story here, guys. So I played a little bit of rugby for a little while before I realized that.
Explains a lot.
You does, concussion much? Yeah.
Because before I did get knocked out, and that kind of made me think about it. But on one occasion, it was actually during a practice. I looked up, and there was about 6 or 7 guys in what's called a ruck, which is a disorganized group of people all pushing each other. And there's a ball somewhere in between them, and they're kicking it and they're pushing. And it's a metaphor for geopolitics. And I looked at this ruck going on, and I looked over and I saw this guy, this little skinny guy, reaches out and he looks up, and his little arm reaches up and he grabs the back of somebody's shirt and pulls, and the whole thing just collapsed. It was like
that's awesome.
It was like 20 joules of energy released inside of an environment where they were pushing awesome. Like 5,000 joules against each other.
Great analogy.
And it made the entire thing explode. And that's what I see happening right now vis-a-vis the machinations of the Russian Federation.
Yeah.
They've reached up into this ruck, and they've just pulled right at the right spot, and the whole thing's unraveling now.
And by the way, the term ruck you're talking about for the chaos on the rugby field, that I believe that's the impetus for the word ruckus.
Yes.
Anyway.
Oh, right. I'm sure it's related.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
I had just, when I worked in China, it was interesting. Most of my coworkers there would be considered by American standards middle class. They had nice condos. They had a car. Had great clothes. They had a credit card, right? I mean, they were living the normal life like you'd find coworkers here in corporate America, and they were happy. It was interesting because this is back 20 years now that this specific story I'm telling, but there was hope for prosperity and an opening of the country. There was this evolution that they saw going on of the infrastructure improving. Everybody was getting wealthier. There was like a positive vibe, and people felt free to talk and do things.
But like I said before, it's relative.
It is. And it was
I went to this little island in the Palau Island group, a place called Peleliu.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's about 5 or 6 families live on this island, and they, like I said, they spend their days fishing, and they go to bed and sleep on a tatami mat, and everybody has there are no doors on any houses there. And running water. They have one well, and they all come.
Billy, they're
all happy.
Yeah.
So it's all relative.
Thing, though. I mean, you can. Well, it's not necessarily. Look, freedom is ill-defined. It tends to be this amorphous term that gets thrown around, and we don't ever really think about what we mean by that. Are those people free to have a stock portfolio? Are
Yeah,
they
if they could ever get to a computer terminal, yeah, for sure.
Right, but do understand that access to economic activity is also something that is liberating. And it's an area where China has actually excelled. They've changed the definition of poverty in order to raise 600 million people
your
out of
point
poverty.
is
But
well taken, man.
they have taken a lot of folks who previously all they could ever do was take care of the one pig and go and brush their one tooth, and they've lifted them up into a situation where they have something more akin to what we would see as a middle class.
That's where I was going, John T. Is exactly right. And there was this, at least when I was there was this illusion that things were opening up and that there was a certain amount of freedom. People were feeling their oats.
Right, but once again, I think one of the key parts of your sentence is illusion.
Yeah.
Like I said, prosperity and happiness is all relative depending on your current situation.
Yeah.
I don't think that anybody in China, in the situation you just described, or in the Silicon Valley, what I described a little while ago, is any happier than these islanders I'm talking about.
Right.
I think happiness is relative.
Well, that's precisely, Billy. And it's also worth pointing out that an individual like Jack Ma goes through the process of diligently creating an international corporation and becoming a billionaire, and then they discover that now their life's in danger, and they can be imprisoned at any point in time arbitrarily, and they can have everything that they've worked for confiscated.
Right.
So it's, again, it's not necessarily a very simple thing to come up with, a definition of freedom, that is.
Thank you, by the way, for making my point.
Yes. if I wanted to try and look strategically, geopolitically, we have an Earth with land masses, and there's a split happening. Yeah. I think we all sort of recognize that. But the bigger split is the one between those of us who are still holding on to what I personally see as Enlightenment ideals, as opposed to those who are more part of this paternalist authoritarian movement.
Oh, I think that's a really great point.
Yeah, it is a good point.
That's a really, you know what, you hit the nail on the head on that one, because I think that's the crux of most malice and problem we have among our populace around the world about who, no, I'm right, no, you're right.
Yeah.
No, really, come on, we're all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it just depends on your, where you're coming from, but I think we're all allowed to live our life in the way we see fit, unless, of course, we're living in some authoritarian place where somebody says we can't live like that.
Well, and people's, the country and culture live in really helps them set their expectations as well. Like people and friends of mine I had in China, they had high expectations, but only to a certain point. A lot of them wanted to come to the U.S. There was a difference of potential. Even in Europe, you can live a very nice life in Europe, but it's a relatively constrained life. By the time the income taxes and VAT taxes and everything else, you've got a fraction of your income left.
Yeah, it's a trade-off.
Disposable income. Yeah.
I mean,
you trade it for a month and a half of vacation every year, or something along those lines.
Yeah,
exactly. But I'll take the 2 weeks and a heart attack early, right? That's
like I said. I think though we have a very good. We've set up a very good line of thinking in today's program about where does depending on where you are in the world, where do you stand?
Yeah.
Why do you believe your place in life is a good place? And would you consider jumping on the other side of the line and trying it the other way?
There you go. Look at shoe on the other foot.
Stand in the other shoes for a while.
Yeah.
I personally have really no desire to live in a totalitarian country where the government says I can't leave when I want to, or go to the supermarket, or.
Yeah. You mean like Australia or Canada, right?
Yes. The whole thing. You know what really frightens me, John T., is this: the idea that my cell phone, if it turns the wrong color because of some government input, means that my life is gone from being okay to being totally destroyed.
Yeah, virtual jail.
It's virtual jail because my cell phone says, "Oh, I've suddenly turned red."
Yeah, you're not persona non grata.
You know that's really frightening.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, and we deal with that by degrees. So there's these sort of
we do deal by degree. Yeah.
Technological quasi-inevitables that we're facing. We're facing the digitization of everything, essentially. We're facing the rise of AI. That hasn't even started yet.
Yeah.
We're facing between robotics and AI. We're facing human obsolescence.
Oh, please! I don't want to go there yet.
No.
Sorry, but we've got like 4 minutes left.
I want to be. I want to live in. Yeah, exactly. I just want to live in denial for 4 minutes.
Human obsolescence is not a concept I want to,
explore.
Look, although I do.
What's the way to manage these things? How do we actually have a bulwark against? There's. I see a situation where there's like 50 million different totalitarian, dystopian worlds that we can enter into, and there's only like 2 or 3 non-dystopian worlds.
You're talking about human obsolescence, right? My dad had a friend a while back, and his sole job, he worked for a General Motors plant, and his job was he bolted on front bumpers on cars. That was his gig.
Wow.
And I guess he was really good at it because, he had it down pretty good. He was making a union wage and everything. But I thought to myself, they could have put an automated step in the assembly line and bolted on the front bumpers with a computer.
Yeah.
But they didn't do it because the union wanted this guy to have a job.
Yeah.
And he literally, for 30 years, bolted on front bumpers.
Yeah.
And he was apparently very good at it because he kept his job and he retired and all that. But, it's sort of the idea of human obsolescence right there. What do you do for a living? I bolt on front bumpers.
When we've had a lot of industries here go from, the rust, turn to rust like manufacturing, into the information and services age. Has been a lot of economic transition.
Sure, that's happened. We a lot of stuff's been automated, and I don't know how many people it takes to make a Tesla, but I'm sure it's a lot less than it took to make the Ford Model T.
That's right. Yeah, no, it's heavily automated. If you've ever seen their factory, it's stunning. How they form the frames and the batteries.
Well, I think China has taught us a bunch of things about labor and how they can either be utilized or completely eliminated depending on what it is.
Well, we're just kind of closing here, but we've had some guests on. Do you remember the gentleman we had from escaped from Xinjiang province? Who was talking about how they have ready slave labor that they just plug into factories if they've got people out or sick from COVID. It's interesting how you're a factory cog. Our value of human beings is so much different in the West than it is there.
Is this radio station a factory? Am I a factory cog?
Or factory of ideas.
John T., thanks for all your hard work and your input, man. You just make a whole bunch of difference. We really appreciate your efforts.
Johnny.
Well, sure, you guys. I appreciate it a ton, and it's fabulous being here with you.
Good to be with you too, Billy.
That's our program for this week. We want to thank all of you for joining us. Flight 1080 is on the way. They're warming up the airplane. Hopefully, they'll get off the runway okay and not damage the landing gear or anything like that.
Well, just make sure it enters the CTAF pattern correctly.
Okay. This is China Watch Radio on KSCO Santa Cruz. You guys have a great day.